Welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this one I'm going to go through my sort of basic way that I paint. If it's something that I don't want to spend a lot of time off because it's for a game or some such, I just want to get it out and get the maximum sort of detail, colour properties, and make it really punch, but not have to go and sit there and wet blending everything and all this sort of stuff, then this is how I do it. So for this one we've got a 3D printed miniature from RUMANDRESIN Printing, a shop that I've used a lot of the time on the channel. They've always really good prints and strongly people should go and check them out. This is for an upcoming campaign, RPG campaign, and this is a character in that. So I want something that'll pop, it'll show off, it'll look really cool, but it isn't going to take me hours to do it. So it started off with a light sort of lilac undercoat, and that's to accentuate the other colours that are going to go on top. And then for this initial part, anywhere where there's skin, I'm just going in with grey-green, slightly watered down, so it goes on a bit patchy and a bit mottled, and that's so when we do a later step the colour will pick up on it. So this is just going to go on all over wherever there's skin. And so we can see then, all base coated, nice and done. Take your time, make sure you don't go over any areas. If you do, go back to the original base coat and just touch them up. So I want this character to just have a bit of colour. So for his trousers I've got this lovely jade green from the Pro Acryl range, and I'm using that, and just again same thing, just base coat all of the trousers and then go from there. And with each of these steps it's just a case of just taking your time, make sure you're painting within the lines. If you do mess up, go back with whatever colour you need to cover it back up with, and just go from there. It's a really simple method, and it makes the miniatures pop. This is quite a contrasting colour compared to the skin and what else is going to go on the miniature, so it just makes it pop a bit more and gives it a bit more sort of regal sort of theme about it, which I want with this character. And there we are, 2 colours down, nice and simple at this point. And so exactly the same again. So there's some nice little sort of embroidery work and embellishments that are on this miniature. So I'm going to go in and use Pro Acryl's dark silver and just pick those out. So we've got that large diamond shaped buckle, a couple of necklaces, and then he's got this strange sort of armour, which at the time I was humming and ahhing what to do, but that ends up being this dark silver as well. And you'll see on the next clip that they all sort of marry together quite nice. But yeah, it's exactly, just keep going it really, really basic, really simple at this point. And we can see there those bits of sort of crusts of armour and a few little details. Now we're going to do the rest of the sort of clothing and wadding that's around his body and his waist in particular, and he's got a couple of like hand wraps and things. And this one I want something that really contrasts with the green, so we're going to go for a nice red. This is just the standard red again from Pro Acryl. It goes on lovely, this really nice colour, and you can water this down a little bit and do a couple of coats if needed. The order in which I paint as well, it starts with whichever piece of the miniature is either the furthest back or is the one that's going to be the hardest to get round when I'm painting other colours, because what I'm trying to just limit any chance of overspill or brushing over and accidentally catching something. Now of course that will happen, but all you do is if you get it in time, you can brush it off with your finger or just a wet brush with just water, or go in with the original colour and just paint over it. But again, so at this point, same thing, just a simple layer. There's no extra sort of effects or anything I'm doing at this point, just base colours, and I'm picking out all of that red trim. Right, so this is how I do my very, very basic sort of Caucasian skin tone. If you want to do a darker skin tone, then you do a slightly darker base coat and use a darker wash. But the same principle applies. So after that base coat's dry, and you can see here all the other colours have just been base coated, the tentacles have been left, I'm now going in with some Reikland Flesh shade over that grey green that's on the purple base coat, and because of it, the grey green coat has gone on very, very thin and it's slightly watered down, you've still got bits of the purple popping through, and with that Reikland shelter that goes on top, you'll get the same sort of variation in the skin, so it just gives a bit more sort of visual interest with the miniature without having to do a lot of actual extra sort of bits of painting. In certain areas with the creases of the hands, or he's got like these marks on his side on this particular miniature, and around the face in particular I'll do a slightly heavier wash because we're going to paint back up in the next few steps. Right, so make sure that first coat's dry on the skin before we do the next one. But this is now just a sepia tone or a strong tone from Army Painter, and just going over any of the red cloth and the blue trousers as well. And the reason you want the previous layer to be dry is because you just don't want these to bleed into each other and stain the skin. And it's just a case of getting this, make sure this is going into the recesses. I actually paint it all over and don't target it, just give it a complete wash. And then again we'll go back in and up paint this afterwards. But it's a really simple method of just getting the fabrics looking a bit more worn, bit of texture, and making them pop a bit more with a dark recess. Right, so similar sort of thing, but this time on the tentacles for this miniature, because I want to keep them that purpley colour, is I've got some of the purple contrast paint, and I'm just going to use that to go in and pick out all those details, similar as a wash. Now the nice thing with contrast paints is they'll actually leave a glossy finish, which in this case this is what we want. I will go in and do some targeting gloss varnish at the end of the video, but for this point this will give it a nice shine, make it look a bit wetter, which is the sort of style that I'm looking for, and it just makes it contrast to the flat fabrics and the satin skin at the end. But yeah, this contrast paint is quite nice. It goes into all the recesses like a wash, but it stains a lot more heavily, so it leaves a much more purple sort of colouring. Now for these sort of waves that are at the bottom of his feet on this miniature, so really simple. On that initial lilac, all I've done is I've picked out the raised edges with the same jade that I've used on the trousers, and now once it's dry, I'm going through with Army Painter's dark blue tone just to pick it out. So that'll be a nice mix with the lilac and the jade green. You know, complements both the colours, and again it's picking out all that detail and making sure everything pops. At this point it does look like a bit of a smudgy mess across the whole miniature, but you just got to trust the process, because it's the next few steps where everything will start to come together. Right, so from here on in, this is where it all starts to come together. So as you can see, all the dark silvers had its wash now, just a nice dark tone from Army Painter. you know, I've done the brown washes and the skin wash and everything. Now we're just going to go back in now with the initial colours. So on this one, so we go back to that same skin colour, again slightly watered down, and I'm just picking out the highlights and feathering it into areas where I want the colour to be a bit more pronounced. Still leaving a bit of that stained flesh with the Reikland flesh shade, and in some areas some of that lilac's still coming through, and it just gives a patchwork. Now at this point, don't be too dismayed, because the army painter has left the washes in particular, and some of the Citadel have left a really sort of glossy finish on the recesses, and it just looks wrong. When we go in with the varnishes later, that's what's going to sort all that out. But at this point, it's just picking out those little details. It's taking a special time so that wherever you want the main focal area to be. So for me, it's his face and sort of the neck and top of the chest area. And then after I've done that, I'll go in. This won't be on camera just because I have to get really close, and all you'll have is my head on the actual camera. But I go in and do 2 little dots of the jade for his pupils, and that just gives his face, makes it really punch and stand out. If you've got a miniature like this as well, by the way, with really excellent quality sort of 3D printing, there's tons of character and detail to pick out and have a lot of fun with. And that's all I'm doing at this point, is just going back over that flesh, and we're going to repeat this step for each of the colours. So exactly the same again now, back with the red. Now the slight difference here is anything that's vertical, I'll just follow the creases and the folds. Anything that's horizontal or a large flatter area, like some of the bits of cloth that are just in between the scythe blades and just below it, I'll variate brush strokes. I'll go left and right and up and down and do lots of little strokes, just picking out all those details and just giving it a little bit more to sort of look at. And again, take your time. If you go over an area, like say for example, so I do catch his skin at one point under one of the arms when I'm doing the hand wraps, is I just stop, clean my brush, get some water on the same brush, and just try and brush that red off. And if it smudges too much, I'll get as much off as I can, and then go back in with the skin tone to cover it up. But it's just a case of taking your time. We're really only using 4 or 5 colours here, and letting the washes do all the hard work. Now this step's the only one that's slightly different. So on the silver areas, instead of going back in with dark silver, I'm just going back in with just normal bright silver. And this is just so it just pops a little bit more. And taking my time, picking out any raised areas. On the curvature of the blade, so the outward bit that's sort of pointing out from his hips, that gets some. And then you'll see I'll go in on the inward bit of the blade, the other half of the blade that's curving round. And because that's where the light would catch both, and it's just taking your time and figuring out exactly all the pieces that you want painted. Anything around his armour, it's mainly the edges, and especially around the neck and just where it goes into the side, near the side of his head. And again, just take your time with this, hit the areas that you want to hit, and have fun with it. It's really, really simple technique. Right, and back to the jade. So same sort of thing, I'll retouch some of the raised areas on the waves below him, and then same with his trousers as well, just picking up any of the raised areas. If my brush physically can't get to it, I'm not going to bother painting it. That's the other thing with this. So any of the base coat of the jade in particular, because of the way the body is, and you've got the tentacles and that sort of waistband of fabric that's around, I can't quite get in underneath without touching the red, so I'm not going to bother, because the eyes won't be looking there anyway, unless you're physically picking the model up and inspecting it. When it's on the tabletop, you won't be able to see it. So I'm just going to hit sort of like the front of his thighs and his knees, some of the little folds on the side of the trousers, and nothing else. Okay, and then at this point, with all those layers done, I'm now just going through individual colours and just picking out any areas that I've either missed or where I've had an accident and I've slightly gone over, and just taking my time. There was actually a bit where I caught a bit of his head, so I'm just blending some more of that pale in there just to make that pop a bit more. and just take your time. If you feel like you need to add a few more highlights to that base colour, by all means go in. There's a little bit here on his ribs where I'm going back in with the flesh, but again, this is now just a case of just picking out all the mistakes that you might have made and sort them out, and then do the rim black and run to the varnishing, and then we're going to be done. Right then, for this last bit, so how we're going to get the sort of visual sort of presentation on this miniature and have it make it all look a bit different and match together, especially where we've got the glossy washes that are in the recesses, is going in with different varnishes. So my rule of thumb is anything that's fabric gets a matte varnish. Silver and metallics I don't touch. Anything, so for example in this particular one, the base and the tentacles, they're going to get a gloss varnish. If it was anything like a miniature that had like big wounds or maybe like an open mouth and I wanted to get a bit more sort of theme in there, they would also get a gloss varnish. And then anything that's skin gets a satin. Really simple. So firstly, it protects your miniature, which is always good, but it just gives a lot of surface variation on the actual miniature itself, and your eye will pick that up as you're looking at it. And the first thing you'll notice is after those wash steps, especially because you've got that glossy finish in the recesses, the miniature just doesn't look right. As soon as you've got that matte varnish on and it knocks that back, you'll realise how different it actually looks, and the paint job itself looks a lot nicer. And the eyes, when the eye's looking at this, especially at tabletop level, which is about a metre away when you're playing, it's going to pick all this up. You've got a nice silhouette of your character, you've got a simple colour scheme, so you know exactly which one is yours on the tabletop, and it's really easy to register, and that's all we're looking for in this. Yeah, you could, if you want to spend more time and do loads of extra details, by all means take your time and do that, but for something simple on sort of tabletop level at this scale, this is a really simple paint job. And if you just follow the steps, you're only actually using a few colours, and you can make something really pop. Right, and here he is, all done. Really simple paint job, as I say, easy to follow. I've just noticed on this video actually there's a little red dot on one of the tentacles, so I'm going to go back and clean that up. But yeah, it's a simple and really easy paint job. Painting shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something you worry about. If you want to get into the hobby, just go for it. You can't make mistakes. You really can't. And if you do manage to do something that's really bad, you can easily fix it by stripping the paint or painting over it. So always remember, have fun. I hope this has helped people, especially newbies in the hobby. You can do a lot with just a few simple steps of base coat, wash, and then base coat again, and go from there. But thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.